So this notion of using IoT to build data to inform people that solar is a good idea, that it's a sustainable thing, or any other thing culturally is a good idea. Informing people of data is interesting. Now, millennials don't generally, first off, only 1% actually reads advertising. And we've so incentivized that generation to sort of false brands and false promises that they listen to their peers. So when you have a generation that's installing and believing in IoT and the kinds of data it's creating, if it's used in a perspective to sort of help their confidence, then they're going to help sort of take off and lead some of these national programs. So getting people to move away from non-sustainable resources, perhaps like coal, and moving into sustainable ones that are impactful in a positive way to society, like solar is, data is going to help inform the community to do those kinds of things. It's a mechanism for informing what the supply chain of workers is, because there are not enough workers to sustain a information-driven culture, knowledge-driven culture in South Africa. And it's not by importing. People are not going to jump across the borders. People are getting stabler and stabler in the cities that they're in, rather than moving internationally. So we want to build with what grow from the people that you have today. So the notion, while there's poverty and poor education, we need to figure out how to incentivize and fix those kinds of things. But we can't leave that up to governments. It needs to happen with these big companies. And one thing about millennials that I'm quite certain about is they're not going to settle for the status quo, the big companies just using themselves to get bigger. They want those dollars and those profits to go back into the communities so they can sustain these kinds of national stories. So solar is one of them. What can you do to sustain a national story like solar energy when you have lots of power, when you have manufacturing, you can create these panels and now install those and have electricity available to you that's going to be a lot more environmentally friendly, that's going to raise the life expectancy of South Africans, provide a healthier environment, and just a better home to live. Happiness matters. And the thing that we get by building cities, smart cities, and using IoT is that ultimately we're driving to a place where humans are happier. That's why humans live in cities. That's the one thing that we have as humans that we can do is drive to be happier. And part of it's being healthier, having jobs, having places of knowledge, libraries, and access to information and culture. And IoT helps us inform us where it's absent, what we can do to improve it and sustain it, what we can do to do prescription of how with complex streams of data we can solve large-scale problems, and I think solar energy is one of them. So it needs to be a very common story. When we look out of our hotel rooms, houses, and we're driving down the street, we should see lots of panels and homes everywhere. And it's a good pattern. I think it's going to happen. I'm optimistic, as I said earlier, about it, and mostly because I realize that the more that IoT goes in, the more data you'll collect, the more it'll resolve into stories that build scenarios and prescription that answers these kinds of questions with sustainable energy, something like solar energy.